What is going on, everybody? My name is John Solo, and welcome to the very first episode of the brand new Patreon exclusive solo radio podcast. You heard that right? Podcast. After all this time, all this deliberation, it has finally been assembled. I finally have got the podcast booted up. As you heard me just say, it is a Patreon exclusive podcast, rather, but this episode in particular is not going to be, and there's a few reasons for that, which I'll dive into right now. So normally you would have to pay $3 or more every month to the SoloFam Patreon to listen to this. But the reason this episode is I'm making this episode for the public is because I wouldn't be here without you guys. This is kind of a milestone for me. I've never done anything like this before. I've done live streams with friends before, but that was really the closest thing to it. And I always had something else to focus on when I was doing that, like building Legos, playing video games, drinking some beers, stuff like that. And I always had somebody else to riff off of. I've never really done a sit alone in a room and talk into a microphone type thing before. And I will admit, it's kind of weird, and it's going to take some getting used to. And I have done an embarrassing amount of takes of this episode in particular because it's the first episode, and while it's inevitably going to be a train wreck, I want it to be the, smallest disaster possible. Maybe that's the phrase I should use to describe it. But because this is a milestone for me and one I never would have reached without the entire Solo fam, I want you all to be able to access this. I also don't think I've done a very good job of promoting the Patreon very much and all the cool rewards that I've got on there. So maybe this will give you guys a little incentive to check it out, see what you're missing by not being a part of the Patreon fam and contributing a measly $3 to access all kinds of cool features like this podcast, the channel production calendar where you see what videos I'm going to be making every month weeks ahead before everybody else, live stream Q&As, thumbnail thoughts where I run polls on what thumbnails I should do in upcoming videos. I just did one of those yesterday. A lot of cool stuff. So maybe check it out. Link is in the description if you are interested. And like I said, it's $3 a month. How much money do you spend on coffee or things that you don't actually need every single month? Best part about this is that unlike a Frappuccino, you can consume 100 podcasts and it's never going to make you fat, never going to clog your arteries. Isn't that great? Wouldn't you trade that? Wouldn't you make that trade-off for me and for yourself? I think you should. Anyway, let's move on. What I plan to discuss on this podcast normally will be some behind-the-scenes type stuff like the work that went into making the most recent episode of Messed Up Origins, some of the information that was really good but I had to leave out for one reason or another, YouTube news, stuff that's going on with the channel, like have I met anybody cool, met any other YouTubers, am I planning on doing any collabs, what videos can you expect next month, and when am I going to be launching the next series, what will the next series be? I think I've listed enough examples. That is the type of stuff I would normally like to discuss. But today, because it is the first episode, I just want to talk about the podcast itself and what I hope to get out of doing it, why I'm starting it in the first place, and what I hope you can get out of it. All of those questions are kind of intertwined, so I'll be answering them pretty much all at once. So let's just dive into it. First off, why am I starting this podcast? That is a very good question, guy who sounds exactly like me. And the reason is, first off, I want to connect with you guys a little bit more. Most of the content that I put out there is Messed Up Origins content where I feel like I don't get to be me as much as I would normally like. I do get to be me. The stories are told through me, but I think of myself more so as a mouthpiece for the author from back in the day. I'm a teacher who gets to share this cool information with you in my own unique teaching style. That's really fun for me. However, because I don't want to detract from the video, because I don't want to slow it down or have people complain about, I'm really sensitive to negative criticism. I like to keep an open mind, but the reason I'm sensitive to it is because I think that usually there's a grain of truth in it, and it bothers me when people comment like, oh, it took you long enough to get started. Video starts at 4 minutes. Video starts at 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Like, first of all, if you comment that, go fuck yourself, 100%. You are not a creator. You don't get to tell people, you don't get to give people a little code where they can skip the content that you put effort into creating. That's just totally rude and uncalled for. And if those first, I understand that there are some YouTubers who exploit, I need to get this video over 10 minutes so I can have that valuable watch time and have audience retention and my videos will get promoted more. First off, I don't think that that helps nearly as much as people like to act like it does. During VidCon of like 2017, I went to a MatPat talk, which was surprisingly pretty small at the time. Like, it's not like it was a full arena, it was a small conference room. And according to him, the retention time, it helps, but like the 10-minute mark specifically is kind of trivial. It's just how much of your video are people watching? What is the percentage that people are watching? And it bothers me when I put, like, I mean, the intros of videos are really hard to write, and the recaps are not necessarily easy either. So it's really annoying when someone will comment and say, skip this portion, because that's the portion that requires an immense amount of effort and brain power to put together in a concise, intuitive way. So I'm very sensitive to stuff like that. And getting back to my original point, I like to go on these little tangents, as you'll soon find out. I just want another way to connect with you guys, to interact with you guys, and in a way that's far less produced than the Messed Up Origins episodes are. As I don't know how many of you know this, but those videos are heavily scripted, as in every single word that I choose is there for a reason, whether it's to make editing better, whether it's to make things flow, whether it's to make the next topic come seamlessly into the picture. I guess that's the same thing as flow, whatever. It's all very deliberate, and I want something that's just a little bit more casual, a little bit less pressure, and that's what this is. That's what I'm hoping this will be. I also feel like over the years I have almost completely lost the ability to sit in front of a camera and perform off the cuff and just talk and bullshit and be a normal person while the camera's rolling. I'm pretty sure that most people have a problem with that, but it's like, I think because my content for Messed Up Origins is so scripted, I have lost the ability to like think about the words that I'm saying when I'm in front of a recording device. Instead, because, I've got all the words chosen for me by the time I sit down, and because I'm pretty familiar with them at that point, I'm not thinking about what specifically I have to say. I'm thinking about the best way to say it. Am I doing the right gesticulation with my hands? Am I using the right inflection? Am I hitting all the comedic beats that I need to hit for this joke to land? Stuff like that. And with this, while it's definitely going to require some editing, like especially this episode, I do think it will take less and less as time goes on. It'll gradually become more casual, and my improv skills will improve. So that is basically what I hope to get out of this, connecting with you guys, improving my ad-libbing skills, and thirdly, just a bonus is this will serve as a great outlet, I think, for me talking about the channel, because as you all know, I am John Solo. I work alone. I have no partners. I don't even have a co-pilot. At least Han Solo had a co-pilot. I don't even have that. I mean, I do have a few people that I can bounce ideas off of, friends and family, like my mom. Surprisingly, I know most YouTubers have problems with their parents where they don't even understand what they're doing with their life, but I am very fortunate to not have that problem. My mom is still sharp as a whip, and she's the whole reason that I am into telling stories and reading in the first place, so it's really cool to talk about it with her. And then I have a couple of friends that help me explore certain ideas. Like my buddy Drew, one of my favorite videos that I've ever made was Pied Piper and Three Little Pigs. And those were two videos that I made at my friend Drew's house when I was living with him over the summer before I moved to Florida. And he really helped me figure out what's like the appeal to those stories, I guess. He's like, I talked about it, told him about it, and he's like, oh, that's cool because of X, or that's really interesting because of Y. So I've got a few people, but for the most part, I mean, I'm most of the time, like they both live in Illinois. I'm down here in Florida, and it's kind of hard to talk with anybody about this sort of thing without feeling like I'm annoying them at the very least. So I think this will help with that. As for what I hope you guys get out of it, first off, I just hope you feel a little more connected with me. You feel like you know me a little bit better, and maybe that will make my telling the stories a little bit better. Maybe it'll make my monotone jokes a little more funny. We'll see. Not making any promises, but we'll see. And I don't know, maybe you'll be invested more, a little more interested in the well-being of the channel, supporting it, buying some merch, coming to events when we start rolling out events. I don't know when that will be, but goddamn, like the real dream is to do a arena tour. Arena, could you imagine? Nah, but just like a small lecture series where maybe I talk about a certain story in a certain city, and people come and listen to it live, and we can kind of talk about it together. That would be cool. But that's something that's only going to happen when I start doing this extra stuff that's more than just the content itself. Hopefully that all makes sense to you. Now, the last point that I want to touch on, and honestly, I almost feel dorky for having a separate bullet point for this, but if you haven't figured it out yet, this podcast is going to be 100% uncensored. What that means is that I am going to be cussing up a storm on some occasions. Not often, it's not going to be gratuitous or excessive, but I like to swear. Coming clean, I like to swear. I think it's fun, I think it's hilarious, and I think it provides a certain comedic punch to certain statements. I get a lot of comments from people that are like, I don't know why, but when you swear, I just think it's so funny. Like, I can't take you seriously when you swear. Like, good. That is my intention. I don't want you to take it seriously. I want you to recognize the humor in these words and to not be offended because I said a bad word. However, the reason that I feel like I need to clarify that this will be uncensored is because my content is kind of in a weird middle ground of for kids and for adults. Like, you look at it, when I describe to people what it exactly is, just a rough summary, like, oh yeah, I look at the origins of fairy tales, where they came from, what countries, the writers that wrote them, stuff like that, and I compare them to the original Disney movie, or I compare them to the most popular iteration of them that we have currently. You hear that and you're like, oh, it sounds like you make content for younger people. But when you go into detail, that proves to not be the case. Because when people ask for examples, I'm like, okay, so what's your favorite Disney movie? Cinderella? Well, what if I told you that at the end of the original Cinderella story, her sisters have their eyes ripped out by birds? And what if I told you that at the end of the Snow White story, the evil witch is forced to put on iron slippers that are red hot with fire because they've been dipped in some sort of fire situation? I don't know where exactly I was going with that. And she has to wear these red hot slippers and dance until she dies at their wedding. That stuff. Like, people are like, oh, wow, that is grim, my friend. And I'm like, yeah, that's the Brothers Grimm. Just kidding. That was terrible. But people hear that and they're like, oh, so it's not for kids. And it is kind of for kids. I would say for the most part, it's a PG-13 show. You can watch it with parental supervision if you're a younger kid. That being said, there's no reason for unnecessary swearing, so I don't really include it that often. I also get a lot of comments, and this is really who this disclaimer is for, from parents and uncles and aunts and even the tech-savvy grandparent every once in a while. They say, thank you so much for this content. I watch it with my nephew or niece or grandchild or son or daughter, and we have a blast watching it. We always learn something new, and it opens up some really interesting conversations about philosophy, psychology, your values, and how you should carry yourself in this world. And I just appreciate that. They're educational. Thank you. And thank you for making them accessible for the whole family. You know, you have YouTubers out there like Logan Paul, Jake Paul, Tana Mojo, who are unnecessarily vulgar, and they know their audience is mostly preteen kids or teenage kids, low teenage kids. And instead of responding responsibly to that, they decide, well, I'm just going to take advantage, and because those are some of the best consumers out there, kids who beg their parents to buy them stuff, I'm going to brainwash these kids into thinking certain things are cool, certain behaviors are cool, and certain ones aren't. And I just don't want to contribute to that. As you all know, all of these stories that we discuss on this channel have morals. They promote good lessons and good ways to live. And can I talk about that? Can I promote these lessons and morals that I don't even follow myself? It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel genuine. And if you knew me, you would know that I'm a pretty genuine guy, very transparent, all the way to the core, to a fault. A lot of people don't like me for that reason, but the people who matter do like me for that. And that's who I'm trying to appease. So that's where this warning comes from, and that is who this warning is for. Parents who watch this content with their kids and don't want them to be exposed unnecessarily to gratuitous language and any other inappropriate jokes I might make along the way, because there's bound to be a few. And with that, I think I'm going to be bringing this podcast around to a close. There's one last thing that I want to mention very briefly to those who have made it all the way to this point, and that is that early next month, I'm going to be out of town, back in Illinois from Florida, getting surgery on my spine. And anybody who has been watching for a while now, or has watched my AMAs, knows that I've had some back issues over the past year. It's been a year now, and it's been awful. I have 2 bulging discs in my back, my L4, L5, which I sustained from lifting with improper form. I'll go into more detail in the future, but basically these nerves have been, or these discs rather, have been pinching nerves in my back for the past year, and it has been absolutely miserable. And I've been getting treatment. I've been going to physical therapy for the past several months. In addition to everything else that I'm doing, it has been a wonderful time balancing all this out and dealing with the pain that is seemingly never ending. And next month is supposedly, if insurance comes through and decides to cover it this time, is when all that is going to end. And I know that, here's the thing, I say that and I know that everyone who hears it will say, John, we don't care if you have to take 3 weeks off to recover from a back surgery, from surgery on your spine. It comes with the territory, we understand. But here's the thing, guys, the YouTube algorithm doesn't understand, okay? I have to have content made for when I'm gone, and I have to work on content when I'm gone so I can have something when I get back. Even though it's not going to be easy, it's something that I'm going to have to do. So, I mean, that's why this week I'm doing an AMA instead of a messed up origin, because I want to get ahead on the topics that I have to cover, because I need to at least get 2 videos done for when I'm going to be gone. That's the bare minimum, and I'm already stressing out about it. So I just want to give you guys a warning about that, I suppose, give you a little update. I'm in less pain than I've ever been. When I first got the injury, I would say the pain was at about an 8 every single day at its absolute worst. I mean, there were times, most of you have probably not had this kind of injury before, but there's moments where the pain will go from like a 3 to a 10 for about 10 to 15 seconds. Because, like, for example, I was getting in bed the other day, just like climbing into it, and my leg being raised shifted my spine enough so that it was pinching the nerves that were already irritated. And all of a sudden, I have this lightning bolt of pain shooting down my spine that's rendered me unable to walk or sit or move or do anything except for focus on the fact that I am in pain, and it finally subsided. I haven't had something like that happen in a while, and I'm very, very thankful for that, and props to my physical therapist who has gotten me to this point. He's a really awesome dude, and I appreciate all his help. But yeah, I'm sick of it. So that is where this surgery is going to come into play. The recovery for it, it's a pretty minor surgery as far as spine surgeries can be. It's a hour-long procedure with an hour prep and an hour post, and they say you get to leave the same day. And according to all of the testimonials I've gotten, not just for this doctor, but for patients who have gotten the same kind of surgery I have, the general consensus is that the worst pain that they were in afterward was the pain from the incision made to make the operation. They said that everything else, that back pain itself, had completely died down. And whew, I'm so excited for that, you guys. You have no idea. It's going to take a lot of work to get back to where I was before, but I'm going pretty hard at my physical therapy currently, and I plan on going twice as hard when I get back and I can actually move the way a normal person would move. Very exciting stuff. So I think on that note, I'm going to be ending this podcast. Thank you all so much for watching and checking it out, especially if you made it all the way to this point, like close to the 20-minute mark. Hopefully I can edit it down a little bit, but we'll see. Really, really appreciate the love and support, and hopefully you're incentivized to check out the Patreon now. I am going to be uploading podcasts to the Patreon during those 3 weeks while I'm recovering from the surgery, because I just want to communicate with you guys. I want to give you like present tense updates instead of just like posts on my YouTube story or announcements on my social media, which the vast majority of you guys don't follow. So you're totally clueless about what I'm doing and why there would be any absence. Go follow those if you can. And maybe if you're interested, check out the Patreon, because I'm going to be staying updated with that throughout the month of June when I'll be gone. Yeah. At risk of repeating myself, I'll say it one more time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be talking to you again very soon. The next episode of this podcast will be Patreon exclusive and uploaded on Tuesday, the 21st of May, and I really hope you check it out and maybe enjoy it. That would be a nice touch, huh? All right, I'm going to get going. I got to get this posted today. I'm already running way later than I planned. I wanted to have this done last night so I could focus on next week's video. But, of course, that didn't happen.